Today is March 15th, 2023, and this is Sandra Lafky Carlson. I'm here in the Tualatin Heritage Center with Mike Lofton, and we're here today to video record the family stories and oral histories of Mike Hannegan and Sandra Hanegan Stearns. And so, well, let's just start out with, you'd like to start out talking about your family, your great-grandparents, or wherever you want to start.
Where do you want to start? That side? So our father was born in Canada, actually. Our grandparents had moved up to Canada to Homestead in the early 1900s, and then actually that's where my grandfather met my grandmother. Our grandmother was in Canada, and they moved down to Montana, and Grandpa worked for Montana Power until he took a fall off a power line. My dad was born actually in Canada. They brought him down, but yeah, he took a fall in, what year would that have been? 1915 probably. No, they moved to Montana in 1915, and then he would have taken a fall probably in 1923, and was crippled at that point. He couldn't go back to that type of work. They told him move out of Montana.
Well, he said that the climate in Oregon was more, or someone told him that he had to go to Washington to
He went to hospitals,
hospitals, and they told him he'd never walk again.
Oh my goodness.
And then they worked their way to Oregon, because the doctor said that would be a better climate for them.
And didn't Granny have relatives? Weren't the battleground relatives already here?
Yeah. They made a settlement with the power company, so they had a little bit of money when they came to Oregon, and
They bought a chicken farm?
Yeah, they bought a chicken ranch, and
chicken ranch,
yeah, but and this was just around the Depression and everything,
right?
And
that was on the Tonkin area, right? Or what they call that?
Malloy.
Yeah, or skunk something.
Skunk Hollow.
Skunk Hollow. I don't know.
And so Grandpa was still fairly crippled, but he was working his way up to using crutches and stuff. And but she had at that point 7 children.
Granny?
Yeah, they had 7.
Alan probably wasn't born then, was he?
Well, right, no,
30,
not quite.
yeah.
So they had 6 children.
Yeah.
And what were their names, your grandparents' names?
Frank and Anna Hannegan.
Anna Ost.
Ost Hannegan, yeah, Anna Ost Hannegan.
Holst?
Ost.
O-S-T.
O-S-T.
Cheese.
But so she was doing, everything, taking care of everything, and the chicken ranch, and it just didn't work out, so they lost that. And
Yeah.
That was during the Depression.
Yeah.
How'd they have the money to buy the service station, though?
That's a good question. I don't know.
So they moved from Tonkin they moved into town probably at the same time they got the station then?
They were back and forth a couple times between Tualatin and the Tonkin area, and then because I think the kids went to school up in Tonkin. There's a school up there.
There was, yeah.
Yeah.
The Carlin School? Was it the Carlin?
I don't know. There probably was only one school there. And so my dad, Vic, was the oldest of the children. And then his brother Elmer was next in line, I think, or right close to Vic's age. And they had an old bicycle. I heard this story
Yeah, okay.
on the video. that they'd ride from Tonkin to Tualatin to do whatever, and, oh, no, to caddy at the golf course.
Yeah.
Oh, they worked at the golf course?
Yes, they caddied at the golf course.
That was a big thing. That the golf course and our family has been connected. I mean, it's just we've weaved in and out with just things in our family at the golf course.
Oh, so a lot of members of the family worked there?
Well, Dad, my uncles all did. My brother and I caddied there as well, growing up.
Okay.
And we got to know members. Dad got to know a lot of members up there. And the members would stop later in life. The members would stop in at the service station and buy gas from Dad.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah.
And,
So about what year did your folks get did they get the gas station?
Well, our grandparents got the station first, and that was in, well, that's it. It was 1931, I thought.
could be in, yeah.
So that's right when the Depression was starting. So that's what, or at least, and Dad had worked at another service station, which was on Nyberg, down closer to where the freeway eventually would be. Was it near the Brickyard or whatever? And then,
There's so many
So many,
interweaving
yes.
tales in that era that, I don't know how people got around so much. They just traveled a lot and they did things. And even in the Depression, they went to Yakima area.
yeah,
All the kids and the grandpa and his crutches and everything, and to pick
Pick fruit.
fruit
Uh-huh.
because, to make some money to live on.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an experience
yeah.
because the one baby was he 3?
I think 3 years old, yeah.
Yeah, he and one of the little older ones, they ate some fruit that had been sprayed, and so the little guy died.
Oh, gosh. Oh.
Yeah. So Grandma rode the train back to Tualatin or to Portland to take the casket back. And that was sad time.
Yeah.
So then the rest of the gang loaded up the cars and the car and drove home.
So that must have been in the late 20s, I would think. That's before they got the station. Yeah.
Okay. And was that the first station? The first gas station in Tualatin?
No, because Dad had worked at another service station, and I guess it was a blacksmith shop as well, according to somebody here at the Historical Society, because they were talking about how Dad had made some iron handles on some doors somewhere here in town.
Oh, yes.
At the church. Or,
the old church.
Yeah.
Oh. Was that this church? This church building?
I think so.
Must have been.
Yeah,
Because, 26 was when it was built.
yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah? Oh.
yeah.
And then, what else happened?
Well, let's see. Vic went to school up at where they put the new
Yeah.
Tualatin, or the old
Tualatin grade school, or
Tualatin
Tualatin High School.
Yeah.
He went to 2 weeks of high school.
Yeah, he graduated from the 8th grade, and then he went to 2 weeks of high school, and then he went back to work.
Yeah, had to do that to support the family because, Grandpa was, well, I guess Grandpa had a station would he have had the station by then? I don't know. But he did. He went to work both at, at a service station in town and then also at the golf course caddying. So he did both.
Oh. Oh.
And let's see. So then, well, you talk about the member and putting him on.
Oh, yeah. So a lot of the businessmen in Portland worked at Tualatin, or members of Tualatin Country Club. And so one of Dad's buddies growing up was Gene Richards, who had a house, I don't know where they lived, but they eventually had a house up by Byram Elementary School. But Gene wanted to go down and interview with Standard Oil to get a job at Standard Oil. And he says, "Hey, Vic, why don't you come down with me? I don't want to go downtown alone." So Dad unwillingly went with Gene, and they went down to get, Dad was just going to wait for Gene, and this member, I don't even know the member's name, I wish I did. But anyway, the member said, "Hey, Vic, come with me." Well, Gene's being interviewed by somebody else, and he's showing Dad all around the operations there. He says, "I really want to get you in the management program."
Really? Wow.
So there's another thing about just one thing went into another just by knowing Dad. Dad got into this program, to manage a service station. And so after he finished up that program, then Dad ended up going down to Crater Lake first. Was that the first assignment? So he had a service station at Crater Lake.
We did.
Yeah, right outside the gate.
In the park.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh.
And you took pictures of the bears in the garbage dump and the lake and it was quite a place to work.
Oh, yeah.
And they had to wear their little uniforms and their white caps and everything and and they had to give them good service to everybody. Yeah.
And so what brought him back to Tualatin?
Well, eventually, this is still in the 30s. Eventually, he got I think he was only at Crater Lake, 1 year, or was it 2?
Not very long.
It wasn't very long, probably just the summer season. And then he had an assignment, he got a service station in Klamath Falls. And he was there from, 1939? Was that the year he went there?
Oh yeah, probably about that.
And that's where he met our mother, was at Klamath Falls. Because Mom had come out to look for work from Minnesota.
Oh.
So, did Grandpa come out first to look for work?
I think Grandpa came out first. They were farmers out of Dassel, Minnesota. And there were 3 girls and the parents, and Grandpa's brother, I think it was his brother, said, "Let's go to Oregon.
Yeah.
I hear there are jobs there." And so they drove out, and then Grandma Stearns, or Grandma Tiller was their name. Their last name was Tiller. And that was Myrna's parents, and so the guys came, and then Grandma took the 3 girls when school was out, and the youngest one had just graduated from high school.
Right. Well,
or 8th grade.
No, didn't Granny stay an extra year or through the school year? Didn't Mom and Virginia come out first with Grandpa? That's what I understand. What do we do? Anyway, they all came out.
They all got to Klamath Falls, and they all got Myrna's got a job.
Yeah, she was a cook for a family that owned a mill down there, the McCartneys.
Yeah, they owned a big sawmill. Yeah. And so one day, Myrna and Vic were, walking down the street somewhere at Klamath Falls, and they kind of met, and he says, "Oh, you want go get a cup of coffee?" Is how the story goes anyway. And one thing led to another, and they got married in 1940. And I was born in 1941 in Klamath Falls. They were still there, and while so that was in June, and then the war broke out in the winter, and so Vic says that he
was sure he was going to get drafted.
Yeah. So he wanted to get rid of the station and move back up to the Tualatin area where the family was. And
yeah, so if he did get drafted, there'd be somebody to help Mom watch after Sandy.
And your mom's name was
Murnice.
Murnice, M-U-R-N-I-C-E. Tiller.
M-U-R-N-I-C-E.
Uh-huh,
Murnice.
Murnice. Mhm.
Murnice.
And so they bought a house her dad, my grandpa Tiller, had built them a house in Klamath Falls. So they sold the house in Klamath Falls, and then they bought a house in Sherwood on Washington Hill, and they lived there during the war then.
And yeah, Dad never did get drafted because he and Grandpa ended up going to work at the shipyard.
Ah, yeah.
So because he was working there, they never drafted him, or at least that's the story. Plus there were, I want to say this part, there were a lot of the
Golf
Tualatin Country Club members were on the draft board.
Oh,
So I don't know if that had anything to do with it or not, but they got him into the shipyard.
yeah.
And they were, he was a welder and an electrician. I mean, they had pretty good jobs
Yeah,
there.
really good jobs. And I didn't realize Grandpa was working there.
He
as
was,
part of that.
evidently, he was able to get around by then
Yeah.
really well, and just with a cane and a limp and
So he worked there too?
uh-huh.
Yeah, it is, this is you can't see it very well because it's so aged, but it says what was it, the captain of the port,
That's
Yeah.
what
Commercial Iron Works port?
He was a captain.
Yeah, that's what it says, yeah.
Oh.
5'10", 150 pounds. Oh.
Gee, did he weigh that much? He always seemed little to me. Of course, that was 40 years, or, a few years later.
So, so the family had the gas station by then, so.
Yes.
So were they running the gas station too?
Yeah, and I don't think the gas station was open full time because of the rationing, the gas, and then everybody in the family ended up working at the service station at one time or the other. My aunts worked there, well, my uncles worked there, brothers, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, did you work there, Sandra?
Yes, I washed windows
Till
on
she got-
Sunday. And when he was born, I had my mom, Myrna's, worked at the station some, and she worked on Sundays because my dad wanted to be open on Sundays, and he took a Thursday off to go fishing then instead of a weekend day. And so when he was born, then I took her place on Sundays and washed windows, and somebody gave me a tip once of $0.25, I think. And also somebody was telling my dad, what are you doing having this girl working here,
Oh,
in the service
that wasn't
station?
proper or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that didn't last too long, but my aunt, Dick's sister that worked there quite a bit, she was saying she pumped gas and she did lots of mechanical work, and they learned too, because it was a family thing. And when you think pump gas, they really did pump gas back then because of the.
Oh.
Yeah, they weren't electric pumps, they were hand pumps. You pumped it, I want 4 gallons or whatever, you pump it up to the 4-gallon level, and then you would
So
put
there
it.
was a lot of
Yeah.
pumping.
Yeah.
So the gals earned muscles back then in the 40s or 30s, 40s. Yeah.
And you gave, what, S&H stamps at that?
Yeah,
was
green
that-
stamps, S&H green stamps.
And then they expanded and they gave free glasses sometimes if you.
And
Yeah.
plates, and they had all kinds of, yeah.
So it was a competition then with the
It
other
was,
gas station?
well,
No, it's you buy 5 gallons and you get a glass.
it was
Or
a
plate,
promotion through.
yeah, through Mobil Oil.
Yeah, whoever had the franchise for the station.
Uh-huh.
And it was a mobile station, and then it was a BP station at the last.
No, it's
Wasn't it?
76 NBP.
Oh, okay.
Okay. No, I mean 76, no, it's mobile, no, first it was, no, let's back way up. It started out as Atlantic Richfield, so it was a Richfield station.
Yeah.
And then they went to mobile when they remodeled. And then it went to BP because Mobile moved out of the Northwest. And then it became 76 when BP moved out of the Northwest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Atlantic Richfield, I remember that, that was,
Well, it became ARCO.
okay.
Yeah.
I remember somebody saying that, when they were kids, they could go to the gas station and get their bike, get air for their bike tires.
Oh, yeah, free.
Free.
Just free.
Everything was free back then.
And it was always service with a smile, and they always washed your windows. And if you wanted them, they said, "Can we check your oil or water?" And they did that. That's what you got. And they knew everybody that came through there practically. You know, it was just like a old family. You know, the small town and the people and even the people coming to the golf course and stop. They'd stop at the corner and say, "Where's the golf course?"
Yeah.
And it was different times back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even people where they were on the corner, if you were coming from Sherwood or whatever, you went past that station, and a lot of the Sherwood people knew Vic Hannegan too. Yeah. So.
Mike, you said you worked there, was it through high school?
Yeah, I worked there high school and college. I put myself through college working there. I'd work 50 to 60 hour weeks during the summer, and then I'd work probably 20 to 25 hours during the school year, on weekends and after school or before school. Yeah. Freeze in the winter and bake in the summer. But yeah, so you get to know people, and it's amazing the connections you make and how the connections you make growing up in that type of environment carry forward to life.
Yeah, you met a lot of people.
Oh yeah, yeah. You don't see that anymore. The kids aren't working like we used to.
Well, and they made this law: you had to be so old to pick berries and to do things, and
I hated picking berries. Oh, I hated picking berries.
that's what I had to do.
I know. Well, so yeah, I picked berries one summer, I think, and then I said no, and then Mom goes, "Okay, well then you have to go out and caddy." So that's when I got a caddy, and I didn't like that any better. And so
you didn't like that?
Not really. I mean, the good thing about caddying is they used to have something called Caddies Day. So Monday was always Caddies Day. So you could go up there and play golf from dawn till dusk. All the caddies could, or anybody that worked at the golf course. And sometimes the members were up there as well. Dad tells stories about playing golf with the Rosenblatts on Caddies Day. So he and my Uncle Elmer, they had one or two golf clubs. And they beat the Rosenblatts.
He was a big doctor in Portland.
Yeah. And that's another thing that carried forward because it seems like I remember the story. I don't know if you do, but I don't know the details to it. That Mom needed some sort of medical procedure or something at one point, and Dr. Rosenblatt did it at no charge.
Really? Oh.
I don't know. It seems like that's in one of the videos.
It could be.
Yeah. And we do have, Sandy has interviewed my aunt Aunt Vera and Aunt Frances and Mom, and I have those posted on my YouTube page.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so about an hour interviews, so yeah, you can always refer to those.
Yeah, the two are the Vic sisters, Vera and Frances. So
and they had some really good stories about Tualatin too.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. And so the school, so you went to the brick school.
Right, we went Tualatin Elementary or Tualatin Grade School, I think they call it. Yeah.
And do you remember any teachers, memorable teachers or favorite teachers?
Yeah, Mrs. King.
Yeah, we both had Mrs. King, and Rick had Mrs. King.
Did he? And
she read the Little House.
Little House,
on the Prairie.
exactly. Yeah.
well, yeah, you were there the same kind of period as I was, a little bit.
Yeah.
And well, I went to because we lived in Sherwood, I went for 3 years of school, or 2.5, in Sherwood grade school. And then we moved to Tualatin on Tualatin Road. And so then I finished that. And then right when I got out of 6th grade is when they divided the city limit, or the school boundaries, and most of my classmates went to Sherwood, and I had to go to Tigard. And that was just traumatic.
I remember it happened to me too. I
Yeah.
did not like that.
No. And
So you went to the junior high?
we were the first class in the junior high, new junior high at Tigard, yeah. And, well, it was the old high school, I guess,
Oh, Fowler?
Fowler.
Yeah.
Fowler Junior
Yeah.
High, yes,
Yeah.
I remember that
yeah.
too.
And then somewhere in there, I met my husband, well, while I was in junior high, I met my husband at the Sherwood Robin Hood Festival.
Oh,
Because David went to Sherwood, lived in Sherwood, and his family was old pioneers, or old family in Sherwood area too. And so that's what we dated all through my high school time.
That early.
Yeah.
Do they still have the Robin Hood Festival?
I think so.
Yes,
I
they
think so.
do.
Yeah.
And I wish Tualatin still had the
The
Crawfish
Festival. Yeah.
Yeah.
I missed the parade.
Yes.
Yeah.
We had a lot of good happy memories of watching that parade and everything, and the kids had their own little part in that. You know, they had the junior parade, and then the bigger parade, and at one point Vic was the Grand Marshal, and on one of the parades, and then one of the last parades they had in Mom Myrnis was the Grand Marshal. That was when they were,
Well, she wasn't grand.
or she was.
She was just on a
Oh,
fire truck.
maybe
Yeah,
that
she was
was
just
it.
on the fire truck.
That's anyway.
But that's when
she was waving.
waving. Yeah, that's when we learned that she really. That's when it first dawned on me that she was really having memory issues, because the parade ended down at, well, it was Kmart at the time, and she couldn't find her way back to the service station. And you said, "Where's Mom?" I said, "Well, she's walking back. You better go get her." Went down, got her, brought her back.
And there weren't many more parades after that. Well, a couple.
Well, there were quite.
Yeah.
There were quite a few.
But it's just the old town, Tualatin just isn't the same as it used to be. It's all commercialized and
Oh,
everything.
big, corporate stores.
Yeah.
Big chain stores rather than the small family-owned stores, so. But, how did you get May's Shake Shop ashtray?
Oh yeah. Bring it. Well, I guess the shake shop was just passing him out at one point. Dad had one. He always had it at the service station, and Dad was a pretty big smoker back in the service station days, and it was always just right there on the counter at the service station.
It's over on that
Yeah, it's
table.
over there. That's fine.
Well, and there weren't, except for Rich's Kitchen, or was
Well, no.
that-
So there was the service station was on the corner, and next to the service station was the shake shop, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And then there was another. Well, the meat market and the grocery store, were they the same
I think they were
building?
connected.
I think they
yeah.
were connected too.
Yeah.
So there was the meat.
Hawkshurst.
Right. Well, Hoxton.
Hoxhurst.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the market, which when I was growing up was Garrett's Market. Was it Garrett's when you were growing up too? Because before that it was what, Robinson's?
Yeah, I don't remember it. I don't remember.
I only remember the Garrett's there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and they had a meat department too.
Right.
Would let the kids read the comic books for free when they were in the store.
They did?
They did,
Yeah.
that's what I was told.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember the post office being down the block a little ways past the store. And
So
one-
yeah, then because there was a Shell service station there.
Yeah.
And who had it when you were growing up? The Shell station, was that the Bunks?
Mhm.
And then the Fesslers after that, and then George Andrews had it for a while.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah.
The Bonks, and then what was the second family?
Fessler?
Oh, Fessler.
Yeah. I never liked Julie Fessler because her dad had the Shell station. She was in my class. And then there was a little, what was the post office and became like a TV repair shop.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Or
Yeah,
was-
for a little while.
But there was the old Maze Cafe. I'm trying to think, or was Maze Cafe the same building as the TV repair shop?
You know, I don't know. I wasn't hardly ever in there, but it was really popular in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
in the 60s and 70s. And,
Mhm.
Yeah. And then the brick store.
yeah.
And your house was over?
On Tualatin Road, so it's about halfway, about 108th and Tualatin Road, 110th and Tualatin Road right there,
Okay.
yeah.
And our grandpa Tiller built that house too.
Yeah, so he built the house to the east of our house,
Uh-huh.
then he built our house, then he remodeled the house they moved into on the other side, which was eventually where my brother ended up living.
Oh,
And then he built a couple of houses down on Hazelbrook Road. He built a couple small houses along Pacific Highway, right next to where the Mexican restaurant is
mhm.
there. And where else did he build?
Well, then they moved. Well,
Well, that's probably about all he had time to build.
yeah,
really.
he was. Yeah.
Because by the time they came to Tualatin in, what year would that have been, did we figure?
well, Mr.
48, 47, probably 47?
Yeah.
Or you said right after the war maybe, so 45, 46, somewhere in there.
Did you know the Elmers? Isn't there
Yeah.
Yeah,
on Juergens Road?
well, yeah, they're at the corner of Quackenbush and Hazelbrook.
Okay.
And yeah, Becky Elmer was a couple years older than me, and had horses, and we always used to go down and hang out with the horses.
Oh, yeah.
And then, yeah, but so the house that Grandpa Tiller built, our houses were right at that intersection, but on the north side of Hazelbrook. Now, was Hazelbrook Road, it seems like we did used to call it River Road. Was that?
Yeah,
did
it
used to
wasn't
call
always Hazel. It
Yeah.
wasn't always Hazelbrook. It was something else.
And so so you were here when the I-5 freeway came?
That
through?
was when
52.
we were in school. When I was a senior or so, they were just working on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, I always remember
That was in
I-5 was here through 12, and I can remember, but when you got up to Breeze Hill, you'd have to get on 99, Barber Boulevard going, because it wasn't finished yet going into town.
What's Breeze Hill? Where's that?
The hill going up from Tiger
Oh, okay.
into Portland, where it turns really from Pacific Highway to Barber Boulevard.
Okay, okay. So, did you notice a change? I mean, did you get a lot more business then at the gas station after the freeway came through?
No, we were too far off the freeway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Only
Yeah.
people that we didn't know were people that were lost.
Yeah, because of course then
How do we get back on the freeway?
they built a big service station right on the intersection there of the
Yeah.
freeway, and so that took business away, and it was cheaper too.
Yeah, okay.
Well, then you and David lived off of Avery.
Mhm.
They had a house on Avery for the longest time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, after he got out of the service, we moved to Avery and built a house there.
Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
It's, the house is now a adult foster home.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know who that is.
And then we got out of Tualatin and moved to Sherwood.
And that's where you've been?
No, well,
You were there a long time.
we were there a long time, yeah, while the kids grew up. Well, when we didn't move off of Avery till our two were in junior high or high school kind of age.
Mhm.
And then we built a house on Murdoch Road in Sherwood.
Mhm.
So we just been busy.
And Mike, how about you? Are you still in Tualatin?
I'm in the house where we grew up. The
Oh.
grandpa built. Yeah, I've lived there since 2000. What year was that? 2011, I think I moved. 2010, I moved there. Yeah.
Oh.
And then, getting back to history, our brother Rick took over the service station when Dad retired, and Rick ran that until he retired in 2006. I want to say, or he got married in 2006 and retired in 2007, somewhere there. But yeah, and then he ended up moving down to Arizona for a few years and got sick and moved back up here.
So the gas station was in your family for
From
generations?
from 1931 to 2006.
Oh.
So you do the math.
Yeah. That's a long time.
Yep. Yeah.
And did you run the gas station?
I never did. No, I was the smart one. I got out of I put myself through Portland State, studied electrical engineering, and now do software development. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And Sandra, did you work outside the home?
Yeah, not till the kids got out of school and stuff, but then I went to work for a company, Select Sales,
Mhm.
that bought a piece of property on Tualatin Sherwood Road that, when was that? 1983?
Has it been that long? Wow.
Yeah, and I still work part-time there.
Oh, you do?
Oh, well,
Great.
just consulting and stuff, nothing real,
So I work for Selectron. She works for Select Sales.
yeah.
Yeah.
But back to Old Tualatin.
Old
Is
Tualatin.
everything-
Oh yeah, we were going to talk about things we remember in Tualatin, events that happened, and
Oh, yeah.
and one thing that nobody here seems to remember except for me, and we've got newspaper clippings that talk about it, and that's the train wreck from 1967. I was in 5th grade, and a classmate of mine used to walk up and down the railroad tracks, and we can't prove it's him. I don't even want to accuse him of doing it, but somebody threw the switch. And whether it was him or not, I don't know. But anyway, so the train came through at 1 o'clock in the morning. Now, besides the service station, my grandparents had lived right next to the service station. And after our grandparents both had passed, we had rented it out. Well, usually the person that rented the house was somebody that worked for us. So Vic Vernon and his wife were living there then, and his wife was pregnant and was just going into labor. 1 o'clock in the morning, they woke up and they heard this terrible noise, looked out the window and saw sparks flying. And so there used to be a siding right there, and there were 2 boxcars sitting on that siding, and the train switched over to the siding, hit the boxcars, and then there was just a mess. I think 20 cars derailed and stacked up in the field where Hannegan's was, that shopping center there. And so, so it was a big cleanup for like 3 or 4 days. Well, it was longer than that, but yeah.
But at that time, it was just a big empty field.
Right.
So,
And nobody was injured in the train?
No one is injured. If it would have derailed and gone into downtown, wiped out several, the businesses in town. Yeah, but no, thankfully it went the other direction. It went to the west side of the tracks instead of the east side of the tracks.
Wow. That must have taken days and days to.
Yeah, they had the rail service restored real quick, but it took them a long time to get all the rail cars back up and out of there. Yeah.
Wow. And then so the bridge collapsing. Do you remember that?
That's before my time. Sandy, you remember it? Would have been 10?
No, I really don't remember that.
Yeah.
It was, and it didn't really affect us, I guess, because,
Probably. Well, other than that, it took out the gas main for
oh, yeah.
points south. So I think like from Wilsonville, everybody from Tualatin down through Wilsonville area all had no gas because that was the main gas line feeding that area. It was on that bridge.
Natural gas.
Natural gas, right.
Oh.
Yeah.
And any of the floods affect you? Because you were living in Tualatin.
No, we weren't living in Tualatin, but the
Oh, no,
business
you
was
were
there. Yeah, so we've got pictures of, Granny and Grandpa, it affected them in 1937, where there's a picture of them with the rowboat outside the house, taking Grandpa out of the house to work.
Oh, gosh.
And then, the worst flood would have been the one in the 90s, where, it was like, I think it's about 3.5 feet high in the service station, the water was. We had floods in the 70s, and I remember the one in the 70s, but it was just a trickle in front of the station at that point. But yeah, the 90s flood was, what year was it, 94, 95, sometime in there? That was
Yeah.
96.
96?
96.
Maybe, I don't know, but it was pretty bad that year.
Yeah. And then the plane crash, the military plane crash.
Right,
Do you
that
remember?
was the 50s as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think
Early
so.
50s? No, I don't, we've got newspaper clippings of it, but that was, yeah. And something else we used to do back growing up nobody does it anymore. It seems like every 6 months or a year we get the photo albums out and we look at the scrapbook and the photo albums and this is this person and this is his cousin who, and we'd learn our family history a little bit then, where we all came from, and you don't see that anymore. It doesn't seem like.
Yeah. Hannegan, is that an Irish name?
The name is, but so we are 1/4 Swedish, 1/4 Norwegian, 1/4 German, and then a mixture of the Irish, Scottish for the other.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
See, Grandma, Frank's wife, Grandma, Anna Ost,
yeah.
came to America on a steamer ship.
Hmm.
And that was in, what was that, 19, well, she was 10, no, she was what?
She was 10 or 11 years old when
It was like
she
1902,
came with her,
1903, somewhere in there, I would think.
came with her mother to the U.S.
That must have been a hard trip.
Well, they came through Ellis Island, but how'd they end up in Canada?
Well, the people, see, her aunts came to meet them
Okay,
and to
Their
take them.
family.
Yeah, her family came and to take them to where they were set up, and had a home
Yeah.
in Canada. And at that time too, there were a lot of land. What do you call it when?
homesteading.
Type thing. They give you a piece of land and you can
Mhm.
do, and more so up there, I guess. I mean,
Well, then, they were in Alberta, and then I guess Grandpa's homestead failed, is why they came back to the U.S.
Oh,
and ended up in Montana.
because you had to farm it for.
I think so, and to come back across the border, the formal spelling of the name is Hannegan. Well, when they came back across the border, they became Hanegan.
Oh,
But by that time, Dad had his birth certificate. So, but the common spelling only had one N in the middle, but our birth certificates all had two N's in the middle. So I started spelling it with two N's again.
Oh, you have?
And so did Rick, yeah. It made it easier to travel and everything because all of our voter registration and our passports had to have two N's in them. And you got a lot of questions. Why isn't this spelled? Especially after 9/11.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was,
Oh, wow.
and my brother had applied to work for TSA and that was a problem with TSA. And,
Oh, that extra N.
yeah, so we put it back to two N's.
Foreigners.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, you did say something about how Tualatin has changed and it's not the same. And, but you stayed close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's always going to be change.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When we were young, it was like, what, population 300 or something? Yeah.
Well, the city limits was really small back then too. I mean, the city limits sign used to be right up here in front of the golf course. And the other direction was up just above the grade school.
Huh.
When I was in high school, or young, I had to pick berries in the summertime to earn money to buy clothes with.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it was a couple years, I picked at the Sasaki Berry Farm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's quite a ways, from where we lived on Tualatin Road, up to up there, but usually Mom took us, but we had to be there early. Boy, we had
So
to
like
get
5
up.
a.m.?
Yeah, we had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning because they started early and you had to be there, and rain or shine.
Really? Even
Yes,
in the rain?
even in the rain, and they were just a nice family to work for, but they they had their ways of doing things, and if it was raining, this was before raincoats too, and they had gunny sacks, and you put gunny sacks on your legs, yeah, and to keep a little
crawl.
yeah,
around
yeah, you crawled
the
around.
berries. And Mrs. Sasaki she was kind of known for being very strict.
Yeah,
wasn't she?
yeah, she was, yeah.
You had to, you couldn't step over the rows of berries, you had to go all the way to the end.
Yeah, oh yeah, I forgot about that. But there were always some of like Yvonne and Suzanne Sasaki, they were fast. They could pick like everything.
Really?
But, you got a lunchtime you took and sat around. They had really nice big trees and stuff up by the house, and had your lunch, and then the last day of picking, then you had a little picnic kind of thing they had for you, and paid you.
Provided, was it ice cream or?
Was it? I can't remember.
Somebody told me that. I picked bulbs because my grandparents had an iris bulb farm.
Oh, really?
And so I would help with the harvesting in the summer. And it was hot, and you had to crawl along in the dirt and hold them out of the dirt. But Grandpa did pay by the hour. But the strawberry farmers, they paid
By the
how
pound,
much.
yeah.
It wasn't, I don't think just a hamlet, just a flat.
Left flat, yeah.
Yeah, so much a flat, and one day, we got off early for some reason, and of course, you didn't have a lot of phone contact those days, so my girlfriend and I decided to walk home from Sasaki's through Tualatin and over on 12. And it was nice. We were capable of doing that. But at one point around the curve there by the cemetery, it was just hot, and we just laid down in the middle of the road and rested in the sun. But there was no traffic.
Well, you can walk everywhere. Richard Abernathy and I, we'd walk home from school.
Yeah.
You know, but, well, not until we were probably in 4th, 5th
But
grade.
there weren't
Yeah.
sidewalks or anything.
No,
it
you
was
just-
just on the edge of the gravel
And you
road.
cut through the cemetery.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you cut through the cemetery. Or
Nah.
did, yeah.
No. Anyway, that was just one thing I remember about that. And then, well, our grandparents lived next door to us in on Tualatin Road. And they owned quite a bit of land there because there were no houses behind us or anything then. And they raised some blackcaps and some raspberries back there. So then I got stuck picking blackcaps and raspberries then after the strawberries were done. Then it was hot. And then if it was really hot, then Mom would come and say, that's enough picking, let's go, you know, and then we'd all go to the Romer's Rest Park
The swim park.
or Avalon Park there, and get to play in the clean
Tualatin River.
Tualatin River.
We thought it was.
It was. I took swimming lessons down there in the river. Yeah.
And one thing too is when you pick berries, back then there was a cannery in Sherwood, so we'd load up all the berries and you'd take them to the cannery, you know, and
Yeah.
sell them to the cannery.
Yeah, that's what Grandpa took them. Yeah, took the berries there when we got done. And that's where I worked then when I got old enough. I worked at the cannery.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Huh.
Yeah. Probably my, between junior and senior year, I worked there and you sorted the strawberries as they went by, you know, if you see a rotten one, you pick it out. And then they did string beans. And string beans, you scooped up off the belt and you tamped them up and then you stuck them in this other thing that they were going to go in the can, you know, like that.
So yeah, Sherwood had the cannery and the tannery.
Yeah.
So you had great smells of downtown and you went to the other side. Oh, that tannery, oh, did it
Yeah.
stink.
Didn't it burn? Eventually the tannery burned?
I think, yeah.
Yeah, they did. Then they contaminated it or whatever. I mean, then they decided that was rotten ground anyway. But and my husband David worked in the cannery in the summertime too, because at night they got the night shift or whatever, and they cleaned up, you know, after the belts and everything were through running for the day and did things like that. And then they worked out in the field at the hop yards, cutting down the hops that went wherever for the beer. And, yeah.
But that's Sherwood, we don't know Sherwood. But Tualatin really didn't have that many businesses though, like Sherwood did.
No, Tualatin didn't have
Sherwood had
anything.
more?
Oh yeah, Sherwood was really an older community more
Yeah.
than Tualatin.
A bigger community
Bigger too,
Oh,
yeah.
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 Yeah, it was really a big downtown area.
Yeah.
And it had a bank. That's what,
Tualatin never had a bank until the 70s or late 60s, 70s.
and
So we had to go over there and do all our banking
yeah, Mom went once or twice a week.
twice a week, Mondays and Fridays.
She went to the bank for the station, you know, put the money in the bank and everything. Yeah.
So after I got out of school, the kids that I went to grade school with, ran into a bunch of them. They go, "We always thought you were rich." I said, "What?" "You always brought your bagged lunch, and your family owned a service station. We thought you guys are rich." He said, "No, we were getting free food at the grade school."
They were back then?
Some of them, yeah, they were paying discounts for
Really?
but
Oh my
12th grade
gosh.
school.
I didn't ever like school
School lunch,
lunches.
yeah, me either.
Well, except when we had, well, you probably didn't, she probably didn't. I can remember her mom fixing tongue, you know,
Oh,
sliced.
yeah, Mom would
tongue.
cook tongue, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and heart, tongue and heart. I never ate either.
yeah.
I remember some kids saying they were eating brain when they. Oh yeah. Kevin Bryant, the Bryant family. Oh yeah, we'll eat the brains. I remember in first grade. I didn't want to go to first grade, but I was playing around, and my best friend from first grade was Marty Brown, and chasing each other on the monkey bars, and I whacked my hand, and I just swelled up, and Mr. Brown, Jane Brown's husband, John Brown, he scooped me up, and he took me in his little Volkswagen Beetle over to the Penningtons to have my hand looked at.
Oh.
And wrapped up.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Did he have a Volkswagen?
He did. He had a Volkswagen Beetle, a brown Volkswagen Beetle.
Well, Dr. Pennington did too.
Did too, yeah. Well, his wasn't brown though, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. It was
I think
green or
blue.
yellow or something.
Yeah.
Was it blue?
I don't know.
No, I don't know.
Yeah.
He was our family doctor.
Mm-hmm.
That
And he
was-
made house calls. When I was about 9, I'd had my tonsils out and then went home and then started bleeding. And so my folks called him. He came in the middle of the night, to
Yeah,
check me
of
out.
course. Yeah.
And so.
He always seems so strict though, so I don't know. I mean, he was nice, but he seemed, I don't know, maybe it's just the fact he was a doctor.
He was probably just not mean, just serious.
Serious, that's it. That's a good word, serious.
Yeah.
Serious, yeah.
Yeah. It's all
Yeah.
business for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
He had some good kids though, too.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
did, yeah.
And a good wife. They're good
Yes.
community people.
Yes, they
Yeah,
are.
they were.
Yeah.
Yeah, miss the old days.
Yeah.
Gosh. Is that it? Can you think of any other?
Probably nothing
Stories.
important. I don't know.
You probably have more stories, but yeah, just coming to mind. Well,
See how easy this was?
I know one thing.
What?
I'm not going to look at that.
no, I looked at mine once and that's it. I'm not going to look at it again. So, well, thank you both very much.
You're welcome. This is fun.
Mike and
Yeah.
Sandra Hanegan, and thank you.